Good morning, a thankful Thursday. It is May 30th, and this is SimWorld Today. I am Marsh, joined today by myself. Marsh, this is a solo version of SimWorld Today, so appreciate you taking the time to walk in these shoes and join us this morning over your, I don't know, your eggs, your coffee, your oatmeal, high in fiber if you're trying to get the fiber in. I don't know what you're eating, but thank you for joining us regardless. And if you're watching later on in the day, enjoy your meal. We've got a lot to get to, so let's jump right in. Game 5 of the Western Conference Finals coming up tonight. It is Minnesota coming back home trying to avoid going out in 5. And Anthony Edwards wanted to avoid going out in a sweep in Dallas, and now he's hopefully bringing that same energy to not losing and getting eliminated at home in his first Western Conference Finals. Do they have a chance? Um, Everywhere you look over the past 36, 48, 72 hours has been about essentially previewing the SWBA finals ever since really Boston. Well, since both went to 3-0, but especially so once Boston eliminated Indiana. The conversation has been, okay, it's going to be Dallas, it's going to be Boston, it's going to be the storyline of Kyrie and the storyline of him returning. Kristaps Porzingis playing against Dallas. There's a lot of familiarity. Both of these teams had different lengths, but times with Grant Williams. What is all this? I'm not saying the Wolves can rally back, but it feels maybe on the Western Conference side of this thing way too soon to start reeling them out. Yeah, I think it was fair to take out the Pacers when folks wanted to take out the Pacers. But these first 4 games in the Western Conference Finals have been extremely competitive. It's not as if these have been blowouts, and not to say that the Indiana Boston series wasn't close. We talked about that a couple nights ago or mornings ago with B-Run. That has been too. But the reason that Minnesota's down 3-1 in this series is because they don't have a great ability to close out. And the one thing that I've always found very fascinating is that when we look at series, and this is I think across the board, we'll see a series and it's 3-0. And we'll say, well, that series is done. Okay? Somebody wins game 4 and it makes it 3-1, and we still kind of think of it in the same way. I don't know that we necessarily think about 3-1 series the same way if it went from 2-1 to 3-1, because this boogeyman idea of having to win 3 games in a row or 4 games in a row is, for whatever reason, just feels like it's this mental hurdle that all of us have, that being down 3-1 after having won game 4 versus having won one of the first 3 games is this totally foreign concept. They're not the same. When I would argue they are. As an athlete, and I'm not trying to compare myself to anybody at a professional level, but you've got to take it a single game at a time. And I think if you're the Minnesota Timberwolves, you can look at the first 4 games of the series and say we should have won at least 2 of them. We have played great basketball for the first 3 quarters. We have not been outclassed. Where we've been outclassed is in the final 5 minutes of this game, we have not found a way to either A, get stops, or B, get legitimate offensive looks that allow us to be successful. On top of that, Karl Anthony Towns had been the G League version of himself for the last 3 games, that he finally arrives in game 4. I don't expect we're going to see a 4 of 5 shooting from deep out of Karl Anthony Towns at game 5, but he's the key to this thing. Anthony Edwards, he's been kind of getting dragged for not being as great in this series. I thought he's been fine. He's been being tasked with being the lone sole creator on offense for this team, and that's just not doable against a really, really great Dallas defense. He needed somebody else to step up. He was being asked to take on an exorbitant amount of the offense because the lack of success of Karl Anthony Towns. If Towns can be 2 of 5 from deep, get the glass, stay out of foul trouble, he loves to take terrible fouls and then react as if it's the worst call in the world. I think he elbowed somebody in the face the other day and then was reacting as if this should not have been a penalty or a foul call. Karl, you clocked the guy. It's a foul. Let's chill for a second and not react as if you just seen a child kidnapped. But if we can get a adequate version of Karl Anthony Towns, which is still like we should be getting at least that, I do think Minnesota has a chance to win in Game 5 at home. Being at home is going to help this team. Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving, however, are not afraid of going on the road because of their track records both in at some level of professional basketball, whether that's in Europe or here in the States. This is not going to be an easy out for Dallas, but I also don't think this is a foregone conclusion. Now, 15 hours from now, this could be a foregone conclusion and Minnesota could fail to close out another game. But at some point, you would expect the regression to the mean to occur, and Minnesota isn't absolutely atrocious in the final 5 minutes of basketball games, the way they were for the first 3 games and even for part of Game 4 in Dallas. All right, let's head over to SimWorld Prep, where we had some very active night last night, second to last night of the SimWorld Prep season, and the big shocker was a big win. Well, there's a couple of them, but let's start with Lakeshore Drive scoring 104 points. They had 34 points in the third quarter alone to beat Beasts of the East 104-76. This was a fever dream of an offensive showcase. 24 points from D'Angelo Jordan. He went 10 of 15. Rico Ellis, 24 points on his own. As a team, Lakeshore Drive shot 74%. Witness work went 8 of 8. Only one player on this entire team shot below 500, and that was Tyreek Watt going 1 of 5. This was incredible, and they went 15 of 19 from deep, so they shot 78% from downtown. This was a couple days ago we were talking about, it was somewhere, somebody posed the question, are we ever going to see a team break Best Coast Ballers' record? I thought there was no possible way that that was going to happen, and by gosh darn it, they almost got there. Lakeshore Drive, 104 points is outstanding. We've talked about it before, though. What was the normal, right? Well, before we start reading into this thing and being like, Lakeshore Drive is back, Beasts of the East are frauds, this is it, we knew this, everything XYZ. What's more likely to happen? What's more likely to happen in the run-to-one? Is Lakeshore Drive more likely to hit 75% of their threes, or are they more likely to look like the team they've looked like for the last 2 months? I don't know the challenges that Lakeshore Drive has had. This is puzzling. I've dove into it. It's been a lack of success from a lot of these role players, and they regressed to the mean probably too much against Beasts of the East. But this was still a good win for them, but I don't know that it necessarily changes my opinion of either team. If it takes 104 points, and keep in mind, they still gave up 76. It's not like Beasts of the East were bad last night. They shot 55% from deep. From the floor. They shot 4 of 12 from deep. They played a pretty good game. Beasts of the East did. They didn't get great offense. Losi Thomas had 4 personal fouls. He was in foul trouble. He only played 9 minutes. Tyree Moy only played 12 minutes. Those are also things that matter, right? Those are also things that are going to be impactful to the outcome of this game. So what were the outliers last night? It was ridiculous historic three-point shooting from Lakeshore Drive, and some of the best players for Beasts of the East running into foul trouble and only playing 9 minutes. That's my takeaway. And I would look at this and say I still would take Beasts of the East. You can show me this box score if they were to meet in what would be the last round of the Founders Region bracket. You could show me that and say Lakeshore Drive's got a shot. That means that Lakeshore Drive would have to have beaten the Originators. It means that Beasts of the East would have to beat Philadelphia Elite. I don't know that all of those things are necessarily going to happen, so I still would not necessarily believe Lakeshore Drive is suddenly back because they scored 104 points with a major number of outliers contributing to that. So to the other one, which I am less surprised about, but Bad Boys Basketball with a 71-61 win over the OGs last night. We loved the OGs 24 hours ago. We loved them. We loved Christ Coates putting up a huge night. We loved that they had depth on this roster. And now here we are, and this is the duality of sports and the duality of the Originators, is that 24 hours, everything is completely different. And this is why, as I've said many times, I fail to trust a lot of teams that rely on a single star. Because last night, when they needed somebody else to step up, nobody else did. Cooper Flagg, 12 of 24, 24 points last night. Victoria Silgauskas, he was awesome. Victoria Silgauskas, this is what you're going to get from him. Big Vic, 10, 11, and 7 blocks. That's a good night. If I'm getting that every single night from Big Vic, I like my chances. But 3 of 9 from Tykerian Walker III, 4 of 11 from Christ Coates, 0 of 4 from Jay Laster. I don't know what's more shocking, that Jay Laster took 4 shots or that he missed all of them. That's the challenge with the OGs. And I don't know, for whatever reason, that challenge percolates to every other top team. I don't feel like that when I look at Philadelphia, or when I look at Beasts of the East, or when I look at Cascadia, Southeast Select, Gulf Coast Lockdown. I don't get that same feeling of, my God, I am super dependent on all of these backups. Not backups, secondary playmakers and scorers getting it done. That is the case with the OGs. And I've said it before, I'm saying it in a lot longer form right now. I think they could win. I'm not denying that fact. But at the same time, I'm not going to pick them. And I ruled them out months ago because I don't love a single star being tasked to win 6 straight games. And last night, they had a single star, and they didn't win. So yes, we can look at that win against Philadelphia, and maybe this is just hangover, right? You have a huge game against Philadelphia Elite, and you have to turn around and play Bad Boys basketball the next night, and you think, okay, well, this is a cakewalk. Bad Boys is sub 500. Well, there could be some upsets you have to face in the run to one, and if you can't get up for every single game, I understand it when you're playing an 82-game season. I don't quite understand it when you're playing a 30-game season. If you can't get up the next night after a huge win the night before, shocking spoiler alert, that's pretty much what the run to one is a big game right after a big game. And your season finale, again, albeit you got the season wrapped up, you had the number 1 seed in the Founders region wrapped up, you just had a huge win last night that did that. I understand all of the outside influences, but this is not as if this is a new thing that we have not seen before from the OGs. Meanwhile, there was a little bit ago, and this will be say real quick as we are moving along. I said a couple weeks ago that Samuel Baugus and Bo Pagnotti Jr. I compared to T.J. McConnell. Well, the last 3 weeks of the SWBA playoffs, suddenly that's a huge compliment because T.J. McConnell can cook. And by the way, so can both of Samuel Baugus and Bo Pagnotti Jr., although Pagnotti, 16 minutes last night, foul trouble himself. All right, that's our talking portion of the show. We're going to the quick, high-tempo portion of the show, SimWorld wrap-up. We have 5 games. We're going to start with Africa and Heartland Zombie Stars, a 77-54 win for Africa. Another big one. How about 25 from Kola Abdul Rauf, carrying SimWorld Africa to a much-needed road win there. We just talked about it. Real quick. Africa, with Ethan Letterman, I think actually can make a serious push. We could be looking at an APAC Part 2. All right, headed over to the game we just talked about, Bad Boys. They beat the Originators 71-61. That's a big win. It's a statement win for Bad Boys. Pagnotti Jr. Samuel Baugus gets rolling, and they survive a potential onslaught. Phenomenal game from them when they needed it most. We talked about this one as well. 2, Lakeshore Drive, Beasts of the East. No fear from Lakeshore Drive on the road. If Norman Nations can be that dude, and if they can get something out of Rico Ellis, let's not talk 75% shooting, but some type of shooting, they've got a shot. But that seems like a huge one, but huge night regardless. 5 guys in double figures for Lakeshore Drive in that one. Indy and H-Town, one of our broadcasted games. H-Town Hoopers, 26 points from Almighty Soul, 6 assists from Vincent Magic. All that, not enough because Andrew Gibson goes for 21 points and 5 boards. River Mirror adds 13, and Ken Fields puts in 11 as Indy gives H-Town their 2nd consecutive home loss of the week. Not all that good, Bob. Let's head on over to Latin America and the reigning Trays, where the vice grips were on. Japheth Towns, 11 of 26 for the reigning Trays, and Latin America gets 20 and 11 from Richard Hennessy. A big win. Latin America has been red hot over this close to the season. They did not slow down last night. Red Joints are normally a big focal point. 8 assists, just 7 points in that one. All right, we are coming on back. It is the SimWorld Prep regular season finale. This season has, I hate this adage, but flown by. It's May 30th. We are going to be wrapping up the regular season tonight with a classic old SimWorld TV doubleheader. Philadelphia in the north at 7 p.m., Gulf Coast Lockdown, Southeast Select at 8 p.m. That second game, huge implications. I'm not familiar with the tiebreaker, but Southeast Select holding a one-game lead on Gulf Coast Lockdown. A win, and you got the top spot in the Southern region and a chance to play the Indy Stripes in the first round. And of course, much like in the Founders region, you avoid having to play a very talented number 3 squad. And in this case, it's Yacht Club at number 3, obviously, if you fall to number 2. I think there's an outside shot that Yacht Club could jump Gulf Coast Lockdown for 2-3. So another piece to keep in mind. But all sorts of activity. The regular season finale is here. That does not mean the finale of some excitement. So 7 and 8 p.m. here on SimWorld TV. This has been SimWorld Today. Thank you to my guest, myself, for joining. Thank you all for tuning in. And we will talk to you tomorrow morning, recapping the final night of SimWorld Prep's regular season and potentially the final night of the Dallas Mavericks Western Conference Finals bout with the Minnesota Timberwolves. This has been SimWorld TV, hosting SimWorld Today. Only place you can see the game, be the game.
This has been a presentation of SimWorld Sports.